Yes, yes, eat the carrots, my little pretties. Eat the carrots. Hello there and welcome back to AlphaCraft. We'll get back to those bunnies later, but today's episode is mainly about games and pranks. Recently we started work on the gaming district and I thought I would try and do my part and add a game I always thought looked fun. I've chosen this wonderfully horrible section of the island that I think it's safe to say that no one else will want this location for their game. So let's get this party started. So the game we're going to build today I saw played on Hermitcraft a few years back. I'm honestly not sure they even gave the game a name, and frankly, I'm too lazy to rewatch the episodes to try and find out. That said, I'm going to go with Stat Bets. Basically, it's playing poker with your stats. I think Tango and Etho came up with this. The redstone is very close to what Etho came up with for the game, and with a name like Etho behind it, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to come up with a better way to do it. Now, the droppers I just placed will be where all the topic cards are stored, and this line is what triggers the bottom hopper on the left to pull one topic out of the system for the game. This middle line will use a pulse extender to trigger the item elevator we will be installing in a minute. Now, this section will pull the signal from the extender and take it over to the item elevator, yet to be installed, while also sending a signal out across the dropper chain, which will function as a randomizer/topic shuffler. Now we build the much talked about item elevator. So what's going on here is the comparator in the back there, with the light on, is in subtract mode. So the signal comes out the front and cycles around to the side and essentially creates an intermittent signal by turning it on and off over and over until the signal from the pulse extender runs out. The observers see the signal go on and off, they power the droppers, and the topic card makes its way up to the game room. Now obviously the game room still needs a little bit of work, but the shulker marks where the item elevator ends. So let's put in a floor. I'm going with a standard checkerboard pattern using chiseled tough bricks and smithing tables. I think the top texture on the tables goes well with the tough bricks coloring, and the top of the tough blocks has a good texture for a floor. For the ceiling, I'm using composters and beehives because I just like to make things difficult. No, but really, I'm always a big fan of contrast in a build, which goes double when you're doing a checkerboard pattern. But the reason I'm using these two blocks, beyond the contrast, is that they both have unique line texturing that planks don't have. And for further contrast, I can even set those lines perpendicular to each other, which I think works very well. I'm setting up a torch tower here to bring the signal that starts the game up here to trigger the lights in the ceiling of the game room. More on that later. Now, this is going to be the randomizer. The dropper feeds into the hopper, which feeds back into the dropper. We're going to pull the signal from the hopper, so to hold the item in the hopper after it cycles, we need to lock it. We'll do that with a redstone torch and some dust. Now that it's locked, we can add items to the hopper. Now normally, I would use dirt and a shovel. Basically any item that stacks to 64 and a non-stackable item, but I had trouble getting this to work with dirt. And so I stumbled onto using snowballs because they stack to 16. Because of that, they give a different signal strength than dirt. To get this to function the way I need it, I place 5 snowballs in the right-hand slot of the hopper, it's very important, and then a 6th snowball and a shovel into the dropper. These are the items that will produce my random effects. Snowball in the hopper means light off, shovel is light on. I'll explain the light and why it's important later on. To finish the redstone, all we need is a comparator to test the signal strength, some dust to power a sticky piston, and a redstone block that ends up powering the double redstone lamps in the game room below. Now let's put all that redstone behind us and do some mindless landscaping. Nothing clears the brain like wanton destruction. Play that time-lapse music at a top, boy. And while I keep picking away at the landscape, let's take a break from making stat bets for a moment and focus on something a little bit different. Today we're at Indy's base again. Some of you may remember that we recently pinkified his base by planting over 5,000 cherry blossoms under the arena. So today, we're going to discuss the sort of, behind-the-scenes aspect of pranking your friends. And that is the unwritten, don't be a oh no clause that comes with every prank. If you're going to prank someone, always be ready and willing to help out with the cleanup. And Indy didn't ask to be pranked. Well, an argument could be made that he did, but I'm sure he wasn't expecting this in response, and it turns out the trees are just tall enough that they interfere with where he wants to place his redstone. And so the call went out for help, and help we shall. Thankfully, these are just cherry trees and not mangrove trees. Those would be a nightmare to clean up, but cherry trees do have lots of hidden bits as well, so to take down a massive forest like this, we have to clear away some of it from below as well as above. Now, Indy already discovered the prank that keeps on giving aspect of this one, in that not all the saplings had grown into trees yet, so unless you clear all the saplings first, you could be cutting down trees and then watching them grow back into place behind you. Pretty frustrating if you don't catch it. But he managed to clear all that out as well as the eastern portion of the forest before he had to head out for the night. Hopefully, I'll be able to clear the rest of this before he logs back in.
2 hours later.
Still going, but seeing some light at the end of the tunnel.
2 hours later.
Nope, still not done yet.
2 hours later.
Why did I ever do this? And there you have it. All done. Easy peasy. And there you have it. Not a single cherry tree in sight. Hopefully, Indy will be happy to see it's all gone the next time he logs on. And always remember that when you prank others, don't be a oh no. Back to building stuff. As you may have guessed by now, either from all the landscaping that was done or maybe because of the thumbnail, we're going to build a lighthouse around and over the Stat Bets game. I've never built a lighthouse before, and the only thing I know going in is it's not going to be the red and white barbershop pole coloring. I want to make use of the new tough blocks. I mean, I know they're old news by now, but this will be the first build I use them on. On the darker sections of the lighthouse, I wanted the corners to have a sort of interlocking brick look between the tough and deep slate. I used deep slate tile stairs as a sort of break line between the two sections, as well as to taper the build in with each color change. On the white sections, I ended up going with quartz stairs because, well, Mojang doesn't seem to think we need any other white blocks of stairs for some reason, and then used concrete powder around those to add some color variation and help make it a slightly less stark black and white contrast between this section and the deep slate sections. I added a little block variation on the tough sections using some stone brick instead of tough brick, but I'm not too worried about block variation on this build, as lighthouses, at least in America, and I'm not sure about elsewhere, but there seems to be a lot of effort spent on maintaining their newish appearance. Since block variation is meant to show a more weathered and worn down look, I want to keep it minimal on this build. And I think there's enough variation used for simple contrast to not have to think too much about it. Then I got distracted by the idea of building a bridge between the island and the mainland, and then thankfully I thought to take a look at the build from the ground level. Remember, I'm completely winging this and was following some basic build logic of each section gets narrower and shorter as it goes up, but as you can see, that very quickly just looks horrible. We're going to have to do something about that. So I made the white section taller, then put another tough section on top, and let's take a look at it now. Yeah, that looks a lot better. I'm much happier with that shape. And yeah, I also built a side entrance, and you know, just didn't think to record it. You know, because I am a professional. But I like how this turned out. It really helps to ground the build to the ground, and it was just bugging me how strange it looked without it. And as I built that, I then realized I needed to pull the hill back and create more separation between the mainland and the island. But all in all, I think it's looking pretty good. And so, as you can see here, I added one more white section before working on the top of the tower. And I did a lot of back and forth with myself on this part, and that's usually when I stop recording, because it gets very tedious showing every block, then break because you didn't like them, then new blocks, then break because you didn't like them. So instead, we're going to cut to the completed lighthouse and take a bit of a tour and maybe, I don't know, show how the game works? Sounds like a plan. So let's start with the landscaping. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I think I managed to make it look more natural while improving the approach to both my game and Spider's down there on the dock. I asked if she was okay before I did all this, and I think it really improves line of sight on her game while making the path up to mine have a more natural flow. There's no trees yet, but we're still working on the gaming area in general, so all that, as well as more official pathing, will come later. Now, I'm sure the way I did the stat bet sign isn't for everyone, but it's meant to sort of have a natural feel and kind of be like the Hollywood sign. Kinda, sorta. I don't know, I just wanted something that you could kind of read from the side, but as you approach the lighthouse, what the sign says comes into proper alignment. I like it. And of course, there's the star of the show, the lighthouse itself. I played around a lot with the top section, but this is what I settled on. I know I could have gone with one of those active scrolling observer lights at the top, but I didn't want lag to be a concern, so I went with a simple redstone lamp style. I think it turned out pretty good, but be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. But enough looking, let's get inside and check out the game. And this is the cozy little entrance nook. I used more of the smithing tables to make the ceiling tile pattern. I really like the way that looks. I ended up using the same basic block palette for the interior walls of the lighthouse. On the left, we have the path up to the lighthouse balcony at the top of the long, very, very long stair. And on the right is the employee entrance to see the redstone. And this here is the game room for stat bets. I made some changes to the table and added some banners to the corners to pretty it up a bit, as well as to hide as much of the hopper as I could. I decided to sacrifice a bit of form for function here. Because we have the ability to sit on stairs on AlphaCraft, it means that the button and the hopper are within reach of all 4 chairs. Now, more than 4 people can play the game at one time, but there's only so much you can do with chairs and a table in a small space. So instead of being some pretty table, it's functional with the button and hopper on top, so they are in reach of the players. So let's get down to the game. Essentially, this game is poker with your stats. To play, the dealer presses this button here. The redstone is engaged. Some music plays. And a topic card shows up in the shulker in the middle of the table. In this case, we have number of spiders killed. That would be what we're betting on. Now, what makes the game like poker is the betting. See, in poker, the ante is very important. And if you know how this works already, my apologies, but I find a lot of people don't. So, basically, each game is pay to play. You have to put some skin in the game. And that's what the ante is. So, let's assume we're betting diamonds. Each player would put 1 diamond into the shulker before the button is pressed. That's the important part. It means there's something to win even if no further betting happens. If we wait until we found out what the topic was, you could decide not to play if you have a bad stat. Nothing would happen. There would be nothing to win. So you have to pay to play, and that payment is called the ante. Okay, you may remember that earlier in the video, I kept mentioning the lights in the game room. This is what I was talking about. The redstone lamps will either be on or off during the game, and they will also help determine what we're betting on. As the signs say, if the light is off, we're betting on the lowest number. If they're on, we're betting on the highest number. This helps to keep the game balanced for players who haven't spent as much time on the server as others. So, in this example, anyone playing would be betting on who has the lowest number of spiders killed on their stats page. As you can see here, I've killed 820. Now, that's not spider farm level kills, but it's probably a lot of spiders when compared to someone who avoids fighting mobs at all costs. But just like in poker, there's more betting involved than just the ante, but we'll get into that once we have more players. And that's basically the game. At its core, you press the button, you get a topic, and then all the players bet on whether or not they think they have the winning number. It's very basic, but it's fun. Okay, so as much as I hate to say it, I can feel my voice starting to give out on me. But before we go, I have to explain the opening clip with the bunnies, don't I? See, what happened was, recently Richard had a birthday, and on that day, he was here playing Clue with some special guests, Pearlescent Moon, Orion Sound, and Carnassus. During that stream, this happened.
I don't know. So I think that's it. Why is there a rabbit in here?
Good question.
That's not.
Followed by this.
Is that a rabbit in your hand, Richard?
And something about that struck a chord in me, and I knew what I had to do. Give Richard the gift of a mansion full of cute little nose-twitching bunnies. All 250 of them. Hopefully he liked his gift. But I think that's going to have to be all for today. Between work, life, and my voice, we're going to have to show the game being played in the next video. But until next time, I have been Gragore, and this has been AlphaCraft. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, always try and find a way to make it fun. See ya.